Hey guys, how you doing today? I'm back, another devotion. I just want to let you guys know that tomorrow I won't be putting up another devotion. We're going to do a youth group live via Zoom. So if you're part of the Ohio youth group, I want you to log in at, I think it's 12 o'clock. I sent out a remind message to all the parents and anybody from my old youth group that still gets this. If you want to join, send me a text and I'll send you the link. So today what I want to talk about is goodness and possibly faithfulness. Let me see how long we go and I'll see if I get into the faithfulness. Um, we always hear this word goodness or being good or maybe something was good, right? Like maybe a good meal. And if you know me, you know I love food. And I'm going to be one of those food critics on anything I eat. And I'm going to tell you when something is good and I'm going to tell you when something's not good. I have the story back when I think it was when Peyton was born. He was in the hospital for a little while at the beginning, and we had this family make us a meal. But they asked, what do you like? What don't you like? I said, well, we like pretty much anything. Not thinking that the one thing that they would make for us is something that I really don't like. Well, they wound up coming over. It was this chicken pasta meal, and it looked really good and it smelled really good, but there were mushrooms in it. And I'm definitely not a mushroom fan. And so to me, it wasn't good. To everybody else who ate it, they liked it. They really enjoyed it. But it's just one of those things that like we attribute that word good and goodness to so many things and we fluctuate on what is good. And a lot of times it's up to perception and up to the person on what is good. But biblically, and as we talk about these fruits of the Spirit, we're talking about goodness. What is really good and what is goodness when we talk about those nine fruits of the Spirit? Well, see, it's goodness is ultimately the ability of being able to choose between right and wrong. If you're a good person, you're ultimately going to be able to choose what is right most of the time. Doesn't mean we're going to be perfect, but ultimately we are going to choose the good things. Well, where do we get this goodness from? Ultimately, we get it from a morality, the morality that we have. See, having no goodness in you is going to mean that your moral code isn't really that high. If you're always getting in trouble and doing things to others and maybe even to your siblings or whatever it might be, if you're always doing things that aren't good, that aren't nice, that aren't right, and you really don't have goodness in you, your moral code is probably a little skewed. But if you are going out there and you're helping people and you're kind and you're generous and all these kind of things, and remember we talked about kindness yesterday, but all of this kind of works together. If you're more in the sense to be like that, your moral code is probably going to be on the higher side. See, goodness involves not only the right behavior, but it also involves not having any evil in you. So it's doing good things, but it's also not doing evil things. Um, you never hear someone say like, that person is really good, but he's really bad also. It sort of just doesn't go together. So where do we get our morality from? Now, if you've been in any of my youth groups, we've talked about this before. But just to go over it quickly, ultimately, we get our morality from God. God gave it to us. When we were born, we had written on our hearts this moral code. That's how we're able to know right from wrong. And the awesome thing is he just didn't give it to Christians. He gave it to everybody. And so let me read this out of Romans 2, verse 15. This is Paul talking here. And he says, they show that the requirements of the law are written on their hearts. He is talking about Gentiles here. He's talking about Gentiles who aren't Jews. So that means they didn't grow up with the Jewish law. So he's saying that the law is written on their hearts. Their conscience also bearing witness, and their thoughts sometimes accusing them, and at other times even defending them. See, what Paul is saying here is that we all have this moral code written on our hearts. Are we listening to it? Are we paying attention to it? I mean, people People don't grow up thinking that murder is right, do they? They don't think that adultery is right. No. See, ultimately, they know on their hearts that these things are wrong. Causing fights, stealing, these things are wrong. Morally, it is already embedded in them. And so what we see is, are people ignoring their moral code? Paul is saying we know what is good and what is not good. See, people who don't even believe in God have the same moral code written on their hearts. It's amazing to think about, but they do. Now, my wife, she is one of those kind-hearted people. Because another thing that goes along with goodness is compassion. Whenever we go out and do anything, no matter what it is, she's always the more compassionate one. And that's why you guys will see when she gets up here and moves up here, she organizes all the outreaches to nursing homes, to other places like that where we can go. I, unfortunately, am not the compassionate one. She is. So when it comes to anything that deals with compassion, I always go to her. I defer to her and ask her what we should do. I have no problems doing it, but that's just not where my mind goes. So last week, she was here for a couple days. She's driving to the church and she sees these two people walking down the street. Well, she saw the one guy, he basically took a header. He was doing something, he leaned over and he just face planted on the ground. Me, what would I do? Man, I would just keep driving. I was like, doo 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 doo. I didn't see anything. Well, anyway, what she did is she went, turned around, stopped, and started talking to them. And then she called me up. And then she's like, hey, can you come here? They're just like really disoriented. Can you give them a ride home? Man, I'm freaking out. I'm like, what are you doing? You don't know these people. We're not supposed to be around anybody. Don't know if they're sick. But her heart automatically goes to compassion. So I stopped and I thought, I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll come over. Me and Peyton wound up driving them to their house. It was just right down in town. It was like a 3-minute drive, not even. But that goodness that is in her heart, it's an incredible thing to be able to have. I mean, it's something that we all should have. Now, there are going to be things that some of us are better at, like Tracy. She's better at that compassion, better than me. So what does that mean? That means it's something I have to work on, that I have to really try hard to make sure that I do those things when it comes to compassion. See, God is good to us, and we love it when He's good to us, don't we? So how much more should we be good to others? We should be able to, at any given time, do good deeds for people. We talked about that a little bit yesterday with the kindness. Are we being kind to one another? It's the same thing with goodness. Are we being good to one another? When you're home, in your lock-in, are you being good to your parents? Are you being good to your brother or sister? Are you being good to your neighbors? Whatever it might be. There's just simple things that we can do that show that goodness that God has put in us, that we always want from God. We always want Him to look on us with favor. We don't ever want the non-good stuff to come to us. But it will. But we're never happy when that happens. And so if that's what we want, what we should do is we should reciprocate that. And we should go out and do those good deeds for others. And we should be good to others. And we should have that goodness shine through us. Because ultimately, that's going to show people that God lives in us. That we have the risen, the living, the Savior, Jesus Christ, living in us. When that goodness comes out, because going back to that story with my wife, I was able to tell them who I was and what church I was from. And it gave me the opportunity just to share that with them. And then I invited them out. Once this whole coronavirus lock-in thing is over, I said, you guys should just come and visit our church. Now, whether they do or not, I don't know. But what I do know is God has instilled in every one of us a moral code. And that moral code is going to allow us to be able to differentiate between good and evil. And so I want you guys to be able to work on this week, this night, maybe the rest of today, is have that goodness come out in you. Have what God has already instilled in you come out. Now, I think I've gone long enough today. And so I'm going to say faithfulness for tomorrow. This will be something that we'll probably do over the Zoom youth group meeting. Remember, that's going to be tomorrow at 12 o'clock. I think technically it's set at 12:01. But I'll be on. We'll just be on for about 30, 35 minutes or so. What I want to do is I want to do a little devotion with you, just talk to you guys, see how you guys are doing. This is a tough time right now, and I get that. I have the ability to be able to come here to the church, be able to do a couple of things, but I get it. If you're stuck home, man, you got to be going crazy. So what I want to do is I want to connect with each and every one of you. I hope you're able to make it. And if this is successful, I want to do a couple more meetings. I want to continue to connect with you guys. A lot of you guys have my cell number. If you have any questions or anything like that, man, just shoot me a text. If you're curious about something, just reach out to me. If not, we're on Remind. You can connect with me that way. I encourage you guys to subscribe to the youth group YouTube channel and just stay tuned for more videos and more things that we're doing. Thank you guys and just have a great day.